Break with Reality, Part 8. Dougal and Keir continued their stroll as best they could, avoiding the many pitfalls and dangers of the Aberdeen streets until they reached the beachfront. They traversed down the steep grassy bank, down to the second level path. The rain seemed to have stopped again momentarily, and after wiping away with hands and sleeves as much as possible of the film of water pooling on it, they sat down on a sea-facing bench. Staring out in a silence broken only by the sea encroaching on the sandy beach and the occasional lament of a lone seagull, they considered the breaking waves on the black stone groins that protruded from the shore. These V-shaped piles of misshapen rocks had been built to stop the sand from drifting along the coast, replacing the wooden ones that had been part of the Aberdeen coastline for many years. The hue of the sky was beginning to lighten out across the sea, and Dougal could see a brighter patch on the horizon, signalling where the sun would surely rise in time. Looking back behind them, towards the city, where a thick, low, foreboding sky seemed to loom over towering blocks of flats and offices, indicating the imminent arrival of some heavier rain, Dougal became acutely aware of the contrast between the two views. This triggered a profound sense of clarity and thought that he'd never been party to before. "Hey, look at this! Look, this is it! This is it! This is what it's all about!" Dougal stood up again and raised his hands to the sky, urging his friend to see what he meant. He said, "You see, there," he pointed to the dark clouds, "there is a devil, right? And he's cooking up a storm, the bastard. And there," he pointed back at the slightly lighter soon-to-be sunrise vista out at sea, "that has to be God's bit. And you and me, right, we're right in the middle. Whatever we do, we've got good on one side and but evil on the other, trying to drag us into devilment, you see?" He sat down again and looked at Keir, expecting him to be nodding in sage agreement, as entrenched in these deep concepts of existentialism as he was. But Keir was staring intently at one of his hands, however, which he was waving slowly in front of him. "My hands are still off a wobbly though," he said, fascinated with the movement of his right limb. "Aye, but God and the devil, you see?" "Eh? Nah, I don't believe in all that religious shite, man," said Keir. "There's only, like, good and bad." "Aye, right enough," said Dougal. He stood up and took a deep breath of fresh sea air. In doing so, he felt a sudden sense of rejuvenation. "Keir," he announced, "I think it's time for me to start being good all the time. No more sinister, not very nice guy sometimes." Sitting down again, he leaned back and placed his hands, interlacing the fingers, on top of his head, breathing deeply, stretching his chest muscles, taking advantage of as much of this wonderful fresh oxygen as he possibly could. "You're not exactly a bad guy, though." "Well, no, but aye," said Dougal, twisting his mouth. "You try telling certain women that." He peered out at the sea, at the bobbing, blinking lights of the supply boats moored just offshore. "Glad we're here, though, instead of drifting about in them things. It's like being a floating prison, I'll wager." "Aye, fuck that," was Keir's blunt reply. "Better things to do than pissing about on the ocean potion." "Speaking of better things, what time does that harbour pub open in the morning? What's it called again? The Coaster?" He pulled out and stared at his mobile phone, as if it's the first time he'd ever seen it. The bars indicated Barty life was very nearly spent. Is that the one that opens really early, about 7 or something?" "Precisely. Thought it was something like that. You fancy it?" He looked up at Dougal, face expectant at this newly forming plan. His friend let the thoughts sink in for a moment. "Aye, go on then. Let's get down there." Dougal waited for Keir to stand up, and they began to traipse their weary way to the harbourside establishment. Apart from a freakish run-in with a talking cash machine on the way, where both men were certain they were conversing with the contraption, when in reality each was answering the other's question, the hallucinogen facilitating a near-perfect illusion of autoteller ventriloquism, convincing enough to their altered states of mind, the effects of LSD seemed to Dougal and Keir to have lessened somewhat by the time they found themselves at their destination. Getting served at a bar was a task more arduous than it should have been. "Aye, mate," said the bleary-eyed bartender, drying a pint glass and looking as if he'd just come in from a night out himself. The pub was quiet and sparsely populated, not surprising for that time in the morning. The stench and funk of the previous night's activities mingled with the disinfectant morning odour of a new day in the bar. The cleaner scraped a bleach bucket along the floor in the corner, rinsing a mop to slap it on the floor. Keir was thankful there were no annoying show-off loud studenty types in there. He wasn't in the mood for their voices. Panic set in for Keir at the sudden realisation that he'd have to communicate with another human being in order to get alcohol. "You get it," he whispered to Dougal, hand shielding his mouth from the man behind the bar, who he was now convinced he recognised as a serial killer from the 80s. "OK," said Dougal, turning to the man behind the bar. "Ah yes, my good man, I'd like to procure 2 pints of the finest ale your establishment has to offer. Would you, in your official capacity as purveyor of beverages, have any recommendations perchance?" Says the barman, looking puzzled. "Look mate, it isn't even 8 o'clock in the morning yet," he drawled. "You want a drink or no?" Sorry, 2 pints of lager," said Dougal, changing tact. The barman's expression hardly changed, but he leaned back, appearing suspicious in demeanour. He slowly picked up 2 glasses and started pouring the beer. Drinks procured, they chose a table with the clearest view of the harbour side. Early day sunlight seared through the clouds above the awakening harbour, spearing the window where they sat, illuminating the sticky table in a wash of golden ambience and warmth that was welcomed by the 2 weary veterans of societal deviation. "Well, what's the plan then?" Keir asked. "Fuck knows," Dougal replied. "Let's just, watch the boats and contemplate stuff." Both men sipped their pints and gazed across the busying esplanade. "Mind if we sit here?" came a voice, startling Dougal and Keir out of their reveries. They both looked up to see a 6-foot, fair-haired gentleman with a Scandinavian accent standing with 2 pints and a large glass of wine in his hands. Dougal looked around at all the empty chairs and tables in the pub, wondering why on earth he would choose to sit with them. No, on you go, man." Dougal waved a hand over the empty part at the end of the table and the stranger sat down. "Hi, I am Johan." He offered a hand to shake. "Oh, I am Dougal," Dougal said, accepting the invitation of a formal greeting, making sure to give him a proper, firm but not aggressive handshake, a technique he'd been assured over the years would give out the right signals of honesty and trustworthiness to someone on a first meeting. "Keir," said Keir, holding out his hand also to be shaken. Another tall, well-built, fair-haired man and a dark-haired woman came over from the bar, the woman crunching crisps from a packet in her hand. A couple more formal greetings later revealed that man's name was Gustav and the lady's name was Lorraine, preferring Laurie. She had an Aberdeen accent. "You guys are early birds here then," said Johan with a smile. "Late birds more like," Dougal informed him. "Aha, this is a continuation then," asked Gustav. "Of sorts. We just felt like we needed a pint to take the edge off things," Keir affirmed. "Ah yes, we too have been out this night. Yesterday we come in from sea and we get a month's wages, yes? A long time out to sea for a man is not so good, you know." Johan winked as he said this. "Ah yes, I know," Dougal agreed, nodding and smiling, having never been at sea in his life before. "Also, we go to bar and we meet Laurie here," he gestured to the woman. "She likes to let hair down, you know." Another wink, accompanied with a gentle elbow to Keir's ribs. "Ah yes, I see." Dougal turned to Keir to gauge his reaction. He raised an eyebrow and smirked back at his friend. "Aye," Laurie interjected. "I was in the yard arm last night and these 2 came in. We've had a bit of a laugh." She flashed knowing looks to the 2 men at this with a quiet guttural chuckle, one that betrayed the many years of smoking that lay behind it. The 3 of them laughed together for a few seconds, then clinked glasses. Laurie's heavy makeup was looking a bit bedraggled at this time in the morning, the thick, bright, partially smudged lead lipstick accentuating her full lips, and the slightly running eyeliner gave her a sexual attractiveness that she seemed all too happy to perpetuate. That, and her low-cut top, push-up bra and black clothes would no doubt lead the average misogynistic onlooker to wonder, in stereotypical fashion, as to what her profession might be. He would be bound to think that she was a lady of the night. Dougal guessed that she had been a girl goth of the 80s, who had never quite shrugged off the look, stuck in that wee time warp to this day. Her face betrayed a hard-earned, difficult life, and her battle-hardened looks placed her at an age no doubt beyond her years. On getting up to go to the toilet, her black miniskirt and laddered black tights revealed a pair of sexy, shapely legs. Also, the small pot belly she proudly exhibited through the tight top added to the resemblance she had of that of a Marilyn Monroe from the dark side. "So, you guys, what are you doing this day then? On the piss, as you English would say?" Gustav inquired. Dougal's and Keir's eyes darted to each other, faces screwed up in disgust. "English?" asked Dougal, incredulous, shaking his head. "You're in Scotland, my friend," said Keir. "That's where we come from." Sorry, laughed Johann. "Gustav, you must stop referring to all British people as English. Some find it quite offensive." He turned back and winked to Dougal and Keir. "I am still training this man." "It's fine," said Dougal. "We aren't offended. It just sounded weird." "Please accept my apologies, sir," said Gustav, placing his palms together in a praying motion. No problem. Well, we're just taking it easy today, see what happens," like Keir said, addressing the original question. The banter continued in good humour for the next 3 rounds of drinks, and everybody seemed to be getting along nicely. The hallucinogens in the brains of both Dougal and Keir seems to either have worn off or were at a stage which now seemed quite normal to them. "Hey, you had breakfast yet, guys?" Johann inquired, patting his not unconsiderable stomach. "Aye, hey, I'm starving," said Laurie, returning from the toilet to sit at the table. "No, not yet. Breakfast was just crossing my mind, actually," Dougal told him. "I could go a fry-up or something." "Ah well," Gustav held up a fat forefinger. "You guys ever had Norwegian breakfast?" "Nah," answered Keir. "Oh well, you must come with us to the boat." Johann lifted his pint glass to his mouth and swigged the remaining lager. "Come, we feed you guys." Dougal looked over at Keir, who shrugged, and then proceeded to tip the dregs of lager he had in his mouth. What the hell, he thought. Why not? What's the worst that could happen?